Hello everyone. Today I would like to talk about the structural analysis of certain thought forms that will act as gates of beingness. Now, let us begin our journey into the mind of a man who is looking at stars. And when he looks at stars, or when a man looks at stars, he sees the greatness of form beyond himself. Every moment of your life which you're looking around, you're seeing the vastness of form. In other words, your vision suggests your reality. This is very important. Now, when I say structural analysis, there are different ways of analyzing structure, and it's really based on the person, actually, who is analyzing. But when I say structural analysis, I want us, from a very fluid and dynamic and selfless state of mind, to begin observing certain senses of self. And these certain senses of self are beyond the human idea, in the sense that they are the human idea's transition into a sense of transcendence, or a transcendent movement. In other words, I am, in a sense, talking about that gap or that distance between the evolutionary form. In other words, what is the process of transcendence to an ordered mind when transcendence has certain chaotic movements? And when I say chaos, I am saying it playfully, because chaos may mean that you have no control. But when you observe the intelligence of movement, that direction is existentially pushed. So regardless of your ideas, existence is moving on. Now, when you become aware of this, you can either, keep your interest limited to certain views of yourself in the past and certain values, or recognize this movement of existence that is now, and the ability you have to, in a sense, learn from self. So, in structural analysis, there are those who are looking at it selfishly, and there are those who are looking at it selflessly. And what selflessly means is that you are considering yourself not as a human being seeing it, but as the observance of the human being observing all there is. This mindset makes you into a consideration. So in other words, for example, for the observer effect, it is our view which is changing it. However, we must also change our view of ourselves to have different results. Because the cause is you. The cause is the observer. That is why it's the observer effect. In the sense that our cause of attention to certain form alters the movement of that form. And this suggests eruptions of reflective existence and non-existence in our subtler realms and realities of thought. So the nature of thought is one that can be seen to work in any modality of space and time. So to structurally analyze this means that we first structurally analyze ourselves and then recognize that our intelligence was never really that structured. We were keeping the structure there. We were saying man was limited. But in essence, there were no words needed for man, because man is an evolutionary process. We are moving. Do you know? Now with self-awareness, we have, in a sense, another layering of existential responsibility. For example, you see animals. They are being driven by the flow of life. They're naturally going there. They don't see death just as we do, but they do absorb human emotions at times. In other words, they are intelligent. And so you can see many animals also transitioning in the sense that the human attention has been really put in different places. So the fish in the pond are going with the flow of life, and their self-awareness is limited to what they are, and it's very limited compared to man. But man has self-awareness now, and you know, we're not saying man is a perfect instrument, but man can be perfectly played. You can make beautiful music out of what there is here in your moment. You might even have with you certain comparisons of greatness being outside of here, but you need to get the existential responsibility back and move see the greatness that is in your moment, in a sense. And then you're always that. But not in a way where you're maintaining yourself by constantly thinking about yourself. Actually, the thinking about yourself starts and it shifts from in regards to quality of authenticity. So you will suddenly see that you will, out of curiosity and the natural longing within you to know more about who you are, you will push away the lies, you will push away the guilt, and immediately you will do that. Trust me, excitement and wonder, these are, in a sense, beautiful guides for man. And what that means is that excitement and wonder are states of being where man is selfless enough to see beyond self. And that is why mystics were the most extreme human beings ever. Because, in my opinion, of course, because they shut everything off. They recognize, all right, I'm a temporal being. I'm here for 100 years, or whatever amount of time that I'm meant to be here in certain moments. And after this, what is going to happen? And so you do become a lover of the unknown because you have observed self to a point beyond self. And you see what is beyond you? That which is keeping you here, which you're not aware of. And so how is that awareness of that holistic movement attained when we're individuals? In other words, as an individual being, how is there collective consciousness? And this all can go back to how, in our observance of thought form, there is neither a collective definition or an individual definition. There is an experiential moment of being co-creating self-reflectively with all that it is, in a sense, inspired by. So don't think that just people are inspired by certain things. Think of as the universe is inspired. In other words, this sector of reality was inspired by other sectors of reality, right? And so when we are acknowledging other sectors of reality, we are also calling the being, we are asking existence to align itself, for we are part of that alignment. And structure usually has meaning. So what that means is structure is put forth so man can, in a sense, understand more, deduce more out of reality, you know, to see how certain phenomena behave. And structural analysis is, see it as a view, you know? I don't find one aspect of thought being wrong from another aspect of thought, do you know? Similar to how a person, a compassionate person, sees all life very gracefully and beautifully. What that means is he's allowing himself to perceive realities where he is more of a natural emanation of his harmonized state of being. So take this to where you must, but you will see we are naturally trapped behind physical bars more than we are trapped behind the bars created by language and terminology and ideology. As a human being, it must be very important for you to understand the nature of ideology. What is an idea? How are ideas appearing to you? When you hear someone talk, how much of that are you receiving? How much is your mind recording? And when you become aware of this, you cannot, in other words, external reality is always in your face. The external world is always here. The minute you open your eyes, this world is here. Now, you will recognize that your excitement to know through the unknown aspects of your being will reveal to you greater existential relationships which your consciousness is simultaneously expressive through. In other words, guys, you have to create your own methodology, and you need to realize a pilot is willing to fly. And so you need to begin maintaining your body. This is a level of intensity and seriousness of engaging the human form in a more profound way. In other words, I'm that guy who is saying, guys, it's cool, there's money, there's everything, there's all these desires, there's all that, but look at what time we're alive. We are the human beings that are alive. We are the peak of transcendence in the form that is now. And so we need to observe and just express the beauty in the light that we see, and in a sense the light that keeps reality within your eyes. Fear breaks when you uncover aspects of your being you never knew, which had such an intense ability to confront. Once you see that your confrontation doesn't have to be based on just your physical imagery of knowing who you are, and your relationships as consciousness shifts with how form is placed, the structural analysis is not destroyed or disregarded, but it is kept there by a very unstructural analysis, by a very unstructural, not analysis, but unstructural observance. So what that means is that all my movements are kept by the still. All my noises are heard by the silent. And so the poet's madness becomes his existential freedom to communicate no longer as a man, no longer as a thought, no longer as an individuality, because you are always observing the collective inspiration that is coming to you. You are an individual being, you're individually paying attention to things. All of existence is collectively paying attention to you. And when you recognize that you can tune, and your state of being is simply the awareness to space and time, transitioning even beyond that observance, you are always active, for you are always activated beyond thought. Keep your higher states of being, you're in a sense more peaceful and harmonized and inspired, and in a sense more creative states of being maintained by not being distracted by thought, by being able to acknowledge it as something that is temporal as everything else. We got distracted, and what that really means is that images became more of an interest than the observer of image. And when this occurs, people come out and they feel there's a sense of emergency, because even though we're all smiling and trying, and the world's, we don't know if it's getting a better place, we think, but there's a lot of ideas on where it's heading, we really see that the depth of man comes from more than the eyes of man. Because when man has, in a comfortable way and in the proper moment, acknowledged his existence in one form, as consciousness, there is the opening capability of simultaneous locality where your inspiration is actually your awareness to other planes of your own presence. So what is blending all these realities and what is keeping the spectrums there? Only a being who's present in each dimension, considering the dimensions to be separate. So you will see that me and you are simply like, how would I say it? A being with many branches. And so our roots are firmly in the unshaped aspects of existence, but in our shape, which is now, the branches are, in a sense, different senses of your individual self-consideration. In other words, I am doing a wondrous act for myself of selves by individually considering this external reality. The hierarchy is kept by individual acceptance of position. In other words, don't think that you're irresponsible when you have taken the existential responsibility of becoming such an individuation, such a person, such a guy with hands. When you have the awareness of the cosmos, you're a guy just, tying shoes, eating a cracker or something. You will see the beauty in your simplicity once you realize how complex your existence is, because you have the inspired view of taking the simple beyond its measure. And so these thought forms will simply become the forms that we are keeping and considering as thought. Your own consideration is more significant than someone else's consideration when you are looking for very personal and intimate views. Your truth is an intimate thing. Your truth is your activation as a being by recognizing how you are present in life. And you see, gracefully you shall be able to acknowledge simultaneous imagery present. In other words, what is very interesting for man, and man is going to see as we progress, is that mankind is, in a sense, the bridge that is integrating the separative considerations of image. In other words, how you're seeing one image being different from an image, the way the intelligence of your existence is, in a sense, growing, is merging this. You will see that there is a concept of emanation. There were certain beings who they acknowledged them in Tibetan culture as being an emanation of this being. And what that really meant is that they were the next step of that being to be part of an integrative world, as an integrative being. You see, the importance of imagery fades when self-remembrance reminds you through your greater eyes. In other words, if you're someone who, let's say, you have, so many outlines and so many things prepared for yourself, but you've put it in the closet and you just forgot about it. And you're sitting on your chair and you're wondering, who am I? What am I doing? I feel I should be doing something. I feel like I should have a purpose right now, right? So you feel that there is something is not clear. And life really begins to look at you through you. In other words, once you become playful with your senses of other and other views, once you see all your other views are coming from your view, then you become responsible in your sense of exploring yourself to activate yourself in the most proper way. When I say activate, guys, activation is really a personal idea. And so these thought forms hinder you by making you forget that you are a being moving towards dynamic states of existence. More greater ability every day. So just like how a plant is growing, once I find the light of my being present, I am also increasing in ability, you know? Think of it this way. This tree, the intelligence of its design can very poetically seem to us to be one where it's made for us. The tree is doing its thing, it grows and it gives its fruit. Now man is self-aware and is given a greater responsibility of being and consideration. But based on that, he still is growing. In other words, you may think that you are only going to be where you are, but the tree is branching out. You might not be aware of it, but different aspects of you, different parts of you are considering various things. Life is beautifully communicating with itself. And once you become aware of it, you become your own intensity. You can choose how you hear sound. You can choose whether joy is something based on circumstance and certain conditions, or it is something that is present in such a profound way, where you feel selfless because there is infinite change. And it's not a formed infinite change. These are feelings. So right now, I am utilizing certain thoughts to engage with certain feelings, to then observe those feelings, to then bring new thoughts, to then find new feelings. Do you see this? So the mind has to engage. And in your structural analysis, you would find that one aspect of you might want to use intuition, but still also work with rationality. In other words, it's okay to have a paintbrush in one hand and, you know, a ruler in the other. It's fine. I mean, that's an engineer pretty much. But a designer, you know. But you will find yourself looking at certain ideas in this life, looking at certain shapes that even have different ideas around them. And I want you to enjoy very playfully how interestingly, when you look at something, it's connected to other ideas or other things, other imagery. So in other words, try to see how meaning is meaningful in your life. And then you will observe the meaningless in a way where you cannot ignore existential awareness and knowing. And so it's a healthy act. It is that faith in your sense of untouchable stability and your acceptance of your unstable or unstable nature that really amplifies your ability here. How much do you trust the life you are? And if you don't, why? Why don't you trust it? It's ridiculous. You know yourself. You've known yourself from the beginning. You know yourself also in ways where you may not be able to linearly understand. But it is important for me to tell you, regardless of who you are and what position you are in, begin moving. Begin becoming active. Do not ignore things. Do not ignore pain, suffering, or any sense of opposition. Utilize opposition as momentum. Think of it as if you're let's say going at a high speed and you utilize a certain push to then increase. So every push that is coming to you, you actually utilize it in your pull. Because when you know where you're being pulled, all pushes are just helping you get there faster. And then the city of thoughts, structures will break in how they are kept. Your pillars of understanding will, in essence, shift. And so because you are viewing your own understanding in a new moment of observance, that moment is always more omniscient and collective than all the individual images which you think it's individual, are in a sense, I guess, there. There is a scene in Gladiator, and so I want to use the scene in Gladiator to actually suggest how when observing shape we can, in a sense, very profoundly move past it. And not move past it in a way of ignoring it, but integratively observing it and recognizing that after this form has informed us, there's also more to journey towards. So, you who are wondering about the structural analysis of thought, visualize yourself as a gladiator who, in your dying moments, are remembering how your fingers touched the hay, which I am also doing right now. And you will see that once you begin to see how life is smiling at you, how every sensitive form is part of the greater intelligence of life, you no longer hate man for what he has done, but you embrace that child and show it the cosmos. And you show it with a compassion that surpasses every word. And so in the silence and stillness of existence, we are found in the infinite ways which have led to the moment that is your way. You will see that an intuitive man at first feels that it's a bit hard to trust the feelings that are coming. It is a bit hard to accept certain realities when you could be wrong about those realities, when it could imply you being something else. And so if you're someone who wants to, in a sense, look at, I guess, I don't like to label it, but spiritual ideas more closely, or in a sense clearly, you will see that before you can seek something beyond the mind, you need to observe the nature of your mind. That the most important teaching that they forgot to perhaps tell you was that to observe your moment of progression is to be alive in the fullest way. Do not be hindered by form, whether it's in any moment of conception, because you're always the observer of the object of observance. And when you recognize you're of that observance, you are still on some level engaging it as a thought, but it's not thought. In other words, I'm not telling you to suddenly dramatically change. I'm just saying become playful with your reality, and in that you shall find the knowing that shall very seriously complete the greatest work of your being here. follow your breath, and you shall see you have always breathed beyond man. Much blessings. And namaste.